Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, and now we are able to look at Game of Thrones as a big picture because the series has wrapped. And one of the first things that we wanted to do was rate my top 5 battles from 5 to 1 over the course of the whole series. Now, naturally, we're going to get into spoilers, so if you're new to Game of Thrones and you haven't seen all the episodes, get out now. And the rest of you guys, while you're here, go down, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and you'll stay up to date with all of the cool videos that we do at CinemaBlend's YouTube page. Let's kick off with the number 5 slot. And we're going back to the early days of the series where we name the Battle of the Blackwater at number 5.
Mother! Get down!
You guys remember this one. Stannis was marching on King's Landing, arriving with his fleet. The king at the time was Joffrey, who was totally insufficient as a ruler, and so it meant that Tyrion Lannister, of all people, had to step up and defend the people of King's Landing. This had one of the most major holy shit moments in Game of Thrones when they finally used the wildfire that had been promised throughout the course of season 2 to wipe out almost all of Stannis' fleet in one fell swoop. It led to a more exciting battle after that, and because of the fact that it was one of the first large-scale epic battles in Game of Thrones history, I'm putting the Battle of Blackwater at number 5. At number 4, I am putting the loot train attack from the episode The Spoils of War. Basically, as Dany's dragons grew, we kept waiting for moments when she was really going to unleash them and use them to show people the full extent of their power. And this happened during the battle when Jaime Lannister and Bronn were bringing all of the gold into King's Landing to help pay off the Iron Bank. And so Dany and the Dothraki show up and really show Jaime the full extent of the threat that they had been hearing about all this time, but they'd never really seen her in action, and it was horrifying and spectacular to see the dragons take out the bulk of the Lannister army in multiple fell swoops. And of course, Bronn using Qyburn's scorpions for one of the very first times to try to shoot a dragon out of the sky goes down as one of the coolest moments in a Game of Thrones battle. Coming in at number 3, I am going to the Wall.
The bars of those gates are 4 inches of cold rolled steel.
Those are giants riding mammoths down there! Do you think your cold rolled steel's gonna stop them?
Now this is Jon, still sort of torn between some allegiance to the wildlings and his position with the Night's Watch. It was one of those episodes that stayed in one location for the entire time. It was a night battle all along the Wall, a significant location for the course of Game of Thrones up until this penultimate episode of season 4. Just some amazing battle sequences featuring some fan favorite characters from Tormund and Ygritte to the first use of giants in battle. Just a great sustained nighttime battle that to me I'm going to put above the battle at Winterfell, because I thought even though it took advantage of the night and the mood and the atmosphere, it was shot just a little bit better, and I know that a lot of people want to argue about that with me in the comments. All right, we're down to our final 2, and at number 2 I have to put the Battle of the Bastards. Two amazing characters in Jon Snow and Ramsay Bolton. Ramsay Bolton, absolutely one of the villains that you just loved to hate over the course of his time on Game of Thrones. And Jon was finally bringing all of the forces that he had to take down the Boltons and to try to take back Winterfell on behalf of the Starks. But it wasn't just that. It was the way that this battle was executed. It had such a feeling of suffocation, of being overwhelmed. In fact, there's one of the greatest shots of Game of Thrones where all of the bodies are trying to get out of this really tight spot, and Jon is almost like clawing himself up from the bottom of the pile, and it's a shot from up above. Of course, I mean, everything about that episode really just stands out, from its Ramsay, firing arrows at the Stark boy at the beginning of it, and of course the way that the episode concludes with Sansa getting her ultimate revenge on Ramsay. But the battle in the middle of the episode, the bulk of the battle that took place in the Battle of the Bastards, makes it one of the most memorable episodes of Game of Thrones of all time. And now for my number 1 battle in the entirety of Game of Thrones, and I have to go with the episode of Hardhome. paid attention to my binge through Game of Thrones, you always knew that I was way more interested in what was going on with the supernatural element that was located north of the Wall. All of the elements with the White Walkers and the Night King, and at Hardhome, that was the one where the threat of the Night King went from something that everybody was talking about to we finally seeing how it would play out in action. It was when horror elements really stepped forward to the forefront of Game of Thrones, and we got to see the White Walkers and the Night King in battle. And it was, to me, exhilarating because we finally got to see, like, oh, this threat that you guys have been promising this whole time, this is a really serious deal. An expertly choreographed battle sequence, and the moment when the Night King takes all of the people who had died at Hardhome over the course of this sudden battle that was sprung on them, and then they all turn into zombies and stand up, and Jon Snow is floating away on a boat, made him realize, oh my god, we are so overmatched in this war, and I need to switch gears and start getting people excited about a battle against the Night King, because that's where the threat is coming from. I sort of felt like that was a turning point for Game of Thrones in general. You can point to that battle as the moment where the show really shifted itself into high gear, and maybe it backpedaled into neutral for season 8, but I loved the way that everything went from Hardhome until we got to the resolution with the Night King. So those are my top 5 battles in the entirety of Game of Thrones, but there were definitely some huge battles that I had to leave out that were in serious consideration. Obviously, the show is known for its big battles, so the ones that just missed the cut would be the fall of King's Landing, which just happened in the most recent episode 5 of season 8, Dany laying waste to King's Landing. More of a siege than an actual battle, so I kind of took off some points for that one. I also looked at the Frozen Lake battle that took place in season 7, which was Jon and all of his colleagues going north of the Wall and then having to fend off a lot of the Night King's army to get out of there. Fantastic battle, and of course by the end of that one, we see a dragon turned into a dragon zombie. Very, very cool, but just missed the top 5. Also, I'm going to put the Battle of Winterfell in there. Like, that is definitely an honorable mention. I know that it's a significant battle. The Night King dies. They defend Winterfell. I will go back and give that episode a couple more views, but I still have to take off the points for the fact that I just couldn't see what was going on over the course of that battle, and so for that reason I left it out of the top 5. So that is my list, and now I want to hear your list. Go down to the comment section and tell me what you would say are the top 5 battles, the most significant battles in all of Game of Thrones. And by the way, if you guys don't know, I reacted to every single episode of Game of Thrones from episode 1 of season 1 all the way through to the finale. And if you want to watch me react in real time to these battles that I just discussed, go to the description and we're going to have a link to all of my reaction videos. That's part of the reason why you need to subscribe to CinemaBlend's YouTube channel, because we're posting really cool videos like this all of the time. So hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and we'll meet you back here when we post our next video here on our YouTube page.